Hey everyone, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Shannon.
And together, we're launching a brand new independent school called Acton Academy Victoria.
But this podcast is about more than just a new outlook on education.
Our school is part of a larger journey that we are on to learn what it means to be an intentional family.
Because we don't just want to see our kids get to graduation. We are looking to raise up the entrepreneurs, change makers, and leaders of tomorrow.
So thank you for joining us for another episode of The Intentional Family. Well, welcome to our final episode of Season 1 of the Intentional Family podcast.
We are happy to have you back.
Yes, it has been way too long. We said we would do it every week, and then we just got crazy busy.
And we had no evenings where we could actually sit down and record anything.
Turns out starting a school is a lot of work.
Who knew?
What we wanted to do for this last episode is just take a moment to share a little bit of what it actually takes to start a school. A lot of people have looked at us and said, you are completely nuts.
And, they're not far off base.
No, we have, as we've said many times, 4 kids. Shannon's been homeschooling. I work full time, and it's been crazy. We have an 8-month-old.
We do. So thankfully, I've been on maternity leave. It would be so challenging if I had also been working, homeschooling, and you working and us starting a school this year. So yeah, it was a good thing I'm on maternity leave.
So what I think we wanted to do today is actually share a little bit of what it takes to start a school. And then we want to take some time just to reflect on what it actually looks like to be intentional when your margins are so tight like we feel in this moment. Mm-hmm. And recognize that we definitely are screwing it up times, making lots of mistakes. We are falling into the drift at times, but there are some things that have been helpful for us as we continue to do this journey.
Yeah.
So why don't we start off with how we started Acton, how we started that process?
Well, logistically, it started about 3 years ago when we actually decided that, I think we want to pursue launching an Acton.
We actually were hoping that someone else would do it.
Oh, we were so hopeful someone else would do it.
My brother who sent the podcast, I was like, hey, Brendan, you should start an Acton and we'll send our kids.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I'm not doing that right now.
Yeah, we were really hopeful someone else would start one because we felt very out of our depth. And I think we still feel often out of our depth. But for better or for worse, we clicked the apply to start an Acton button on their website. Thankfully, it gives you a ton of space and lots of, there's no time limit on when you have to submit your application. It just asks you these 5 questions, which on the surface level you're like, oh, that's a really easy question. But then when you actually dig into it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. We have to think about so much when we're looking at answering these questions.
Well, actually, it actually starts before the 5 questions. You have to do your research first.
Yes, there was a ton of books we had to read. They don't mandate it. They just say these are recommended readings before you answer these questions.
But it's kind of like one of those, they don't mandate it, but if you don't do it, you'll probably not pass.
It will show that you didn't do your reading.
Yeah, so one of the obvious resources, the one that we recommend to every family who is interested in starting Acton Academy Victoria is Courage to Grow by Laura Sandifer. And it's a really simple but beautiful read. It's her story of starting the original Acton and the journey that they went through. And I know for me, there were so many mic drop moments in that. Mm-hmm. She starts off with this story of a child, and you don't know until the end that it's a child, but doing this Socratic discussion. It's all about this moral tension. You are in a rescue boat, and there's a boat going down on one hand and a pod of endangered whales on the other that you have to try and decide, where do you put your rescue efforts? You can't rescue both. And this moral tension gets even increasingly harder and harder. You find out again that the whales are endangered and the last of their species, but you find out your family's on the boat. And she talks about this rigorous, rich discussion that takes place. And then at the end, she tells you that the person who came up with this facilitated is, I think she said 8 years old.
9.
9 years old. And you're like, whoa, I did not know that 9-year-olds were capable of having this kind of discussion.
Mm-hmm. I know there was many moments in that book where I just would sit there and cry and just be like, this is so beautiful. I didn't know this was possible. And I want this so badly for not just our kids, but for kids of Victoria.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so many stories or books were like that. When you're learning books on the latest and greatest neurological research, and you're learning books on things like the latest technology that's helping kids learn in other countries. People like Sal Khan, who started the Khan Academy, and we learned about myelin, right? Is that what it's?
I know there was one book about just like how your brain works.
Yeah, this tissue in your brain that grows increasingly stronger, and the theories around it, and so. It's a lot of research, a lot of deep diving into particular subjects around education. And then after you've done your research, then you get to move on to the next step, which is what you were describing, these 5 questions.
Yeah. And so it took us a really long time to get through that application process. And we could have done it a lot faster than we did, but we weren't in a huge rush. We knew we wanted to launch in 2026, and this was back in 2023. And so we took our time. We pretty much scouted out facilities to find out how much is rent going to be, because we wanted to submit a budget, because one of the
requirements.
Well, one of the questions was how much money do you think you need to launch? And I was like, well, I don't actually know that question, so we should probably find that out. We should build a budget.
Yeah, so we were looking at how much does it cost for legal fees? How much does it cost for hiring a consultant? How much do you need for things like accounting? All of that kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff. We interviewed consultants. We did so much research going into this application process.
Well, and to be fair, your dad is a former CFO of the 3rd largest auto finance company in Canada, and also was the chair of a finance committee for an independent school. So we had some resources at our disposal to be able to kind of ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're really, really incredibly blessed because your dad is going to be on our board of advisors. And so just bringing that experience to our team has been incredible.
Absolutely. And so after about a year, we submitted our questions, and then we had no idea what was going to be on the other end of that. And
we actually thought there was very little chance that they would accept us.
Because very little.
When we started looking at the kinds of people they were accepting, it was entrepreneurs who had started 6-7-figure companies beforehand. And we were a pastor and a nurse.
We were very simple.
Yeah.
And very unextraordinary people.
Yes.
Asking to do something so extraordinary and being please pick us. But at the same time, I'm really scared. If you pick us, that means we actually have to do it. So,
well, and they also say that out of all the people who apply, only about 2% are accepted. And I mean, I don't know where they get that stat from, if it's anyone who clicks on the reply button and, starts the process or what. But it was very clear that they had pretty strict criteria of what they were looking for, and we had no idea if we were going to meet that. We just essentially did our best to work on these 5 super long questions and submit them. And kind of pray and keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, that someone read that and saw our heart and saw our passion for this and said, okay, let's give them a chance. And thankfully, we heard back a few weeks later that they had accepted us.
No. They hadn't accepted us yet. We had a 3rd step.
Oh, right.
With this 3rd step, and we did not really understand what the 3rd step was. And we were scanning the internet trying to figure out, because they called an audition process. And we just assumed that it was going to be an interview where they grilled us and asked us a ton of questions. And so we were trying to study up on everything we had submitted and keeping our fingers crossed and praying our brains out. And we just imagined that it was going to be this horrible process. And after we did our submission, they accepted us into the 3rd step. And it was nothing like that. It was really simple. It was send a video of why you think you'd make a good Acton owner, or why you're starting Acton, something like that.
Yeah.
And we were actually on holidays in Portland at the time. We were at this Airbnb just outside of Portland, and we were just stressing out. We knew we wanted to do this, and so we're shooting this video on
and teleprompters and kids in church dancing. I am the most awkward person ever on a video.
That's why this is we
are not
we're
visually
not
recording this at all, because
this is all audio.
I am so awkward. And I hate videos. And so this video piece was actually a big hurdle for me.
But we did it, and we just put our heart on our sleeve and said, here's her kids. Here's what we want for them. And funny enough, when we actually got to our orientation, we did get accepted. And when we got to our orientation week, Jake, who is kind of in charge, he's one of the owners of the network, and he's in charge of orienting new families. And he kind of shared with us that every single family that they bring in, it's because the passion is caught. It's because they can't unsee what they've seen, and it's something that just resonates in how they speak and talk about the school. And that really did exemplify who we were. One of the questions they ask is, what will you do if we don't accept you?
And I was like, I'm going to cry a lot. Then we're going to pick ourselves up and we're going to try and build something as close to this as humanly possible.
Yeah. And I think that was it. It was like, if we don't get accepted, we can't unsee what we see. We can't go back to school as it's just presented, and we need something different. And so if we can't get this, we'll get as close as we can.
Yeah.
So that was like step one. And then after that, we actually had to figure out, how do you physically start a school?
Yeah. There was a lot of us just sitting here and being like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
How do we do this? We're starting a business. We're starting a school. We've never done either one of those before. So we figured out, okay, like, how do we actually legally incorporate?
Yeah, we hired a lawyer. We legally started a company.
Yeah, we're like, okay, I guess that's our next step. We just started. It's like they say, like, it's eating an elephant.
Yeah,
like, you do it one bite at a time. And it's really just been this like slow, steady process of us being like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
What's the next step? What's one thing in front of us that we need to tackle next? Because initially it was, okay, like, if we're going to be a BC certified school, like, we have to start that process, which started over a year ago.
Yeah, and that's probably the bulk of what a lot of our time is we actually hired a consultant, Kathy Lowenstein. Shout out to Kathy. She is awesome. If you're wanting to start a school, hire Kathy as a consultant. She's amazing. And work with her to develop extensive policies. We had to prep for an interview that we had to go through. And I mean, this interview is not an easy interview. I think the year before us, they had something like
33 applications to start independent schools in BC.
And out of those 33, only three actually started.
Yeah. And so, like, also, that's a terrifying statistic when you've spent a lot of money to go through a process and you've spent 9 months of your life dedicated to something, and you're like, I don't know if it's going to work. Like, we could miss something. We could say something wrong in our interview that could disqualify us. And then we have to repeat this process again. Because you can't try again until the next year.
Well, there was like all these scary moments in that interview process because we submitted and they didn't like some of the submission stuff. And so we had to go back to the drawing board and they moved our interview date. So you're just stressing out.
Oh, gosh. And we had like a newborn at the time.
Yeah.
To top it all off, just because it wasn't stressful enough already. Let's add sleep deprivation and a newborn into it.
But again, by the grace of God, we made through the process and we found out in January, I think, that we had passed. And then it was like, okay, now we've got the certification from the BC government. Now we got to figure out, how do we get students? How do we hire staff? How do we build a program? Where are we going to do it? All that stuff had to get figured out. And so that's been a huge part of our process now, is just, okay, so we've got approval from Acton. We've got approval from the BC government. Now we actually got to do this thing.
Yeah. And we're on a time crunch because, like, you can't start marketing legally that you're opening in, like, say, September without your BC certification. So we couldn't start telling people that we were actually coming until like the end of January, which is when kindergarten registration has already passed. This was not a good,
no.
I was really frustrated with that. But
one of the things that Acton actually encourages us to do is they call them BLDs, or breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And they say, have as many of these community conversations, talk to people in the community, and just share your vision. And so we've been doing that over the past 3 years, and we've had dozens and dozens of these things. We talk to all of our friends. I bump into other pastors in the city and share it. We meet with business people and politicians, and went to our local MP and shared it with him to see if he would send people our way. He was like, no, I'm nonpartisan. I don't,
Which, fair enough.
But, it's been this progressive journey of just sharing the story over and over and over again. And as we did so, it started resonating with other people. And, some of them were like, I love this. It's too expensive. I can't do this right now. And there were a few who were like, I see the vision, and I see, even if it was going to be a stretch for them, I see the investment that this is going to be in my child. And I really, really, really cannot miss up this opportunity. And so we started building a cohort of people who were in with us.
Yeah. We went through a fairly lengthy process to hire our head guide.
And we are so excited about Renette.
We are so excited.
We've known her for a little bit, and she just brings like energy and drive and just a huge vision. And she's bought in because her kids are part of the school. And so we know that she's coming in with just a desire to see it flourish and function. And she's got skin in the game.
And so many skills that I'm just really excited about, that she's going to be our head guide. And she's going to be the one working with our children and the other children who are planning to come to our school.
And she's an educator by schooling and by trade. I mean, she actually did alternative education with her own kids for many, many years and just brings that wealth of experience, which ironically, for those of us who are starting this, you and I are starting this school, and we are still new to this education thing. I mean, this is the first year you've homeschooled Isla. And so we're just excited to have Renette as a partner in this. And she's going to do an incredible job.
Absolutely.
So that's the nuts and bolts of this thing. But there's another side to it, which is, okay, this has added a ton of extra to our life. And we've been talking this whole time about being an intentional family. And I think some of our audiences are wondering, like, are you kind of BSing here? Like, do you actually live this intentional family out, or is it just a fun talking point? Because how can you do that when you are so crazy busy all the time?
Which is an excellent question. And I think that I ask myself that a lot, or I not just ask myself that a lot, I see my own lack, if that makes sense, in my life. Because I can look at my day and be like, wow, I let the whole day slip by and I didn't pay attention, or I just kind of drifted through the day, or my mind was on all, like, my to-do list is, I swear, like 2 years long. Like, my to-do list is wild. And I'll just get focused and crunch down and realize that, wow, I wasn't present with the kids. I was short with them, or I wasn't patient, or I did what was easy. And while I understand that there's sometimes you have to get stuff done. Like, we're recognizing that we're in a season where, like, this stuff has to get done. And there's
We're launching in September.
We are launching in September. Like, there's just the reality that there's tasks that are time sensitive that have to get done.
Yep.
And I have 24 hours in a day. And not a lot of them are spent on sleeping, unfortunately. But sometimes you have 36 hours worth of work to fit into a 24-hour time slot, if that makes sense.
Why don't you pause here for a second and just give a picture of a day in the life of Shannon, a day in the life of a mom who's on maternity leave, who's homeschooling with an 8-month-old, trying to balance that out with 2 other kids who are in preschool and kindergarten, and also trying to start a school. Like, what does that actually physically look like for you?
Well, it starts out with, like, I try always to get up before the kids, because I find if they wake me up, then I'm just angry, like, the whole day. Because I'm like, there's nothing worse than getting, like, jolted out of bed because someone wiped a booger on your eyebrow. Or they just stared you dead in the face until you were startled awake. And that's just it's not a good way to wake up. So I like to get up before the kids, and, like, I need to have a cup of coffee before I can really speak to anyone. And then we have a routine. We have a routine in the morning where, like, I get the kids up, they have to get dressed, they have to make their bed, which then usually means I'm fighting with our 3-year-old to make her bed, because we're in the process of intentionally helping her become a big girl, which she is not desiring to be.
No, and it's funny because she's fully capable.
Oh, so capable of it.
I think she's still used to being the baby of the family, and she wants everyone else to do things for her.
Yeah.
And so she's really struggling with that transition from going from baby of the family to suddenly having to move aside because there's a new baby in the family.
Well, it's not even that. We've noticed this about her for years, where she's a child that she's so capable, she's so intelligent, and she will find every way possible to get everyone else to do her work.
That might be a skill sometime in the future.
It is a skill that she can hone later in life.
Gotta temper it right now.
Oh, I know, because I'll ask her to do something and she'll just turn around and be like, Isla, you do it for me.
And Isla, who's the dutiful oldest, will go and
be like,
do it.
Oh, okay, sure. And so, I mean, it's just like, it's so funny. But either way, this is like, we're working with her to learn independence and to follow routine. And so it's a battle. then it's breakfast and getting everybody out to school. And so then I'm home usually with our oldest and our youngest, as I'm homeschooling our oldest. And I tried to do a bit more of an Acton approach where I allowed her independence. And so she knows her curriculum. She gets to choose what she works on in the morning. And she kind of has set goals that her and I have worked out together of what she needs to get done in a day. We usually have a bit of a powwow first thing where it's like, hey, well, here's our plan for the day. Here's what school you need to do. And the morning is like her schooling time. And that's the bulk of my usually Acton work time. Once we get our baby down for a nap, then I try to get an hour or two to just like plug away at tasks. Unfortunately, I only have 2 or 3 of these days a week because our 3-year-old doesn't go to school every day. And so I was finding that on the days when I had 3 kids home, that I was getting nothing done. Like you're just, it's chaotic. I'm trying to homeschool. We're trying to keep the baby alive. And our 3-year-old likes to have me around and likes to be present, and which is a great thing. But I will admit that I've found it frustrating this year when I just have so many things to do that I've struggled to be present.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to kind of take a step back from trying to get stuff done on my days when I have 3 kids home to say like, I can't, this can't always be a work day for me. And I had to kind of flip it because I was finding that I was just really frustrated all the time. So then our afternoons have often looked like either errands or seeing friends or getting stuff done around our house. Or if I can get Acton stuff done in the afternoons, then I try to do that as well. And then we pick up our middle 2 from school, and then it's playtime and getting dinner on and like the witching hour, which I mean, every parent's going to be like, yes, the time between 4 and 7 is just awful. And that's true in our family as well, where it's pure chaos. It feels like in our house leading up to dinner time where kids are playing or they're fighting. You're breaking up fights. You're getting, 9,000 snacks and also trying to make dinner. And then we have our evening routines once you're home. Then we're able to have dinner. We have a bit of a nighttime routine. And then oftentimes after the kids go to bed, that's when I will kind of go back to work. Mm-hmm. And I'll try and do another couple hours of work in the evening. So it's often if we're watching a show, I'm like on the computer or I'm on my phone trying to do stuff.
Do some social media posts or...
Yeah,
totally. So... obviously, your life now has gotten dramatically busier. You're feeling the tension. Mm-hmm. You're feeling that desire to intentionally pour into our kids, be emotionally present for them, and it's recognizing that you have limited margins for that. So why don't you share a little bit, or maybe we can both share a little bit of some of the steps that we're taking intentionally in this season to make sure that we haven't lost focus of the plot. Mm-hmm. Our whole desire for this school was that we wanted to have a place where we could intentionally invest in our kids. And that's a great vision. But if you lose that in the midst of starting the school, then you kind of missed the point, right?
I think this is something that I think you've done better than I have.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a constant tension, right?
It is. And we are not winning that tension.
Not all
a
the
lot.
time.
Like for me, sometimes it's a lot of the days, or I'll have seasons where like I'll get to the end of the week and be like, wow, I sucked at this week. I was in my own head, or I just got distracted by all the tasks I have to do, that I missed out on that intentionality of being present with our kids. Thankfully, our rhythms, like if we go back to the rhythms conversation that we had a few weeks ago, that does help ground us. Mm-hmm. Because those routines and those spaces are so ingrained in our life that it's actually hard to miss them.
Yeah.
Now, we don't really deviate from those.
We still have our Saturdays where we're out as a family. So we have those connection points. We still have our evenings and we still have our mornings, right? And these are really key anchoring moments where I think we, even when we get really crazy busy, even when we get super stressed, we have these places where our kids know that we're going to be there and present, and and we do try and cultivate those spaces where it's like no tech around these times, and so we're not distracted. We're not constantly thinking about what is the next post that we have to do or the next follow-up conversation that we need to have with a potential staff member or student or something like that.
Yeah, so I think like those those rhythms have been what has grounded us for sure in this season. I think that during the days, though, when I'm at home with the kids, that is where I felt the biggest tension, because the 2 or 3 hours after bedtime that I get to work is just, it's not sufficient. It's not allowing me to get the job done and stay on top of things that I need to stay on top of. And so I do have to work as well during the day. And so I have to work with the kids around. And that is really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get anything done when you're interrupted every few minutes. Because naturally, like, there's a question about a schooling thing, or can I have a snack, or can I do this, or can you help me with that? You know, there's so much need there. And so I found myself getting really, really frustrated.
Well, and I think it's important to just recognize that, we share a lot of ideals in this, and there are true ideals. Like, these are things that we are wrestling through and living out. But at the same time, like, these are real tension points.
Yeah.
Real life doesn't stop because we're trying to start this amazing school.
Yeah. Like, we still have friends we need to see. There's still people that we're invested in. There's our kids.
We still need to develop our relationship with our kids and help them through their own emotional needs, and
feed them.
Be present with them. Absolutely.
There's a reality to all of this. And so I found that there's been a lot of times where this has been a really overwhelming season for me. Of that mental list is just growing longer and longer and longer. And it's not even just Acton, but it's the stuff I get behind with on the kids, where it's like, oh, I haven't done this with them, and I've wanted to do this, or I haven't had that conversation with them that, I need to have, or this issue's been cropping up consistently in our parenting that we need to deal with one of them. You know what I mean? Like, there's just especially with moms, you get that really long mental list, and then it just gets so overwhelming because no matter how much you do, you never get caught up.
So as you're wrestling through some of these things, where are some of those moments where you've had to take a step back and ground yourself again in the plot of, what are our values? What are the things that we actually care about that we want to live out as a family?
Yeah. So I think if we go back to that values conversation, where there's like the ideal values and there's the lived values. And I think one of my ideal values is being present with the kids, but it wasn't a lived value. Like, I was having a really hard time being present with them when they were around, just because I had so much going on and there was so much I needed to do. And not that any of that's changed, but I realized I needed to create spaces where I could be present with them. And like, there's no way you can be present with everybody all the time. Like, that's just an unrealistic reality. Like, because you do have to work, you do have to allow them, like, your kids need spaces where they can just be by themselves and play. And it's okay.
And we knew in this season too that, like, this was going to be costly, not just for us, but for our family. And so we have sort of mentally prepared for it. But even when you know that that's the case, it doesn't always stop you feeling guilty when you know you're dropping the ball, you're missing things. But I have been impressed that as you've been wrestling with this tension, that there are these moments where you just make a hard call and say, our school is really important, but I don't want to miss out on the most important thing, which is, being present with our kids. And there has been those moments where you've had to intentionally say, no, I'm not going to work on school day. I think one of the moments I remember more recently was, I think it was a couple Thursdays ago. And you were like, man, I know I need to work on some stuff, but today I just need to be present with our kids. So I think you took them to the beach. Yeah,
I think I realized that, like, the day that I had our 3-year-old home so there's 3 kids home, that those days previously had been really, really hard for me, that I was frustrated a lot because I couldn't get anything done, but I was trying to get stuff done. And so I wasn't present with the kids, and I wasn't also getting anything Acton done because we were just kind of at war with each other. So I got to this point where I was like, this is not the mom I want to be. This is not how I want our daughter's, like, one of her days at home to be marked by, is that, like, mommy's always frustrated and doesn't spend any time with me. So I just kind of said, like, you know what? I think I need to make my Thursdays a day off. from Acton, at least while the kids are home during the day. And while that has been really, I think, challenging because I feel guilty for not doing some Acton stuff, but I was like, I need to make this a time where we can just be together and we can have fun and just let myself take a step back from Acton to be present with our kids. And so then I started planning like, okay, like let's go to a park or let's go to the beach and let's just enjoy being together. And I have to say like that has helped so much.
It becomes another anchor point.
Yeah,
right? A point where, you're present, you're available for our kids, actually sustains you as you're going through those tougher moments, and it sustains our kids because they know that they have these moments when they will have you fully present with them. And of course, I mean, our ideal is that that's all the time, but that's not realistic for any family.
Yeah, like that can never really happen. And yeah, I think to piggyback on that, it was like I was constantly trying to pour from an empty cup, but I was never actually pouring in, like refilling the cup. Like I was dry, and I was overwhelmed and I was stressed out. And I mean, we're still pretty stressed, but having those spaces where I just kind of said, like, this is a refresh time. This is a pouring into my cup and the kids' cup so that when we do need to take out some of that water, that there's still stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I think that has been a big thing of allowing us to be a bit more intentional and be more present with our kids and still actually create space later on in the week to make it to be like, hey, this is my work time. So you guys are going to play for a little bit while I get a little bit of work done. And they're much more open to that now that they have space to be like, no, but we get mommy on this time.
Yeah, so as we're finishing off, I think one of the things that we're realizing is that intentionality is a great concept, and all the things we've been saying are still true. Like, you will drift into things if you don't take steps back to actually evaluate. And I think one of the things I loved about what you just described is, like, you were kind of drifting into some defaults around the workload, and you had to take a step back and evaluate, is this the kind of parent I want to be? Is this the kind of relationship I want to cultivate with our kids, even in this season where you're doing something specifically for their benefit?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've gone through the similar process. I think I've shared about this before, but one of the regular patterns I've developed over the last couple months is to do a quarterly just retreat day and take some space to get away and just evaluate what am I supposed to work on this month? What am I feeling compelled towards? And I found that every single time I take that moment to actually evaluate, what the way I'm living and kind of compare it against the values and the goals that I have, I always come back with some tweaks and some things that I think benefit our family. That was how we started having me come home, structure my day differently so I could come home at 5:00 and take a different kid and just spend that intentional time with them while you're making dinner, or sometimes I would make dinner with them so that you could have space to interact with the kids without the pressure of making food. Most recently, we came back, and one of the things we're teaching our kids, kind of coming out of our faith, is we want to help them learn what it means to pray and to talk to God. And I realized I just have been defaulting in that. And so I bought this book, and it was just, a simple book to teach kids how to pray. And it's been really cool. We've read the first chapter, and we started putting some of those things into practice. And it's just been really beautiful to see our kids engage and come alive around this aspect of their faith. But I wouldn't have got there if I hadn't taken time to say, what are my values? What am I actually living? What adjustments do I need to make to our rhythm so I can more live in those things? And so, these concepts that we're talking about aren't just concepts. They're actually things that we're learning to live out. And by no means are we perfect.
But we are living this out very imperfectly.
But it has been beautiful for us to see these things that we're talking about in the podcast actually get worked out in our regular life as we're in this huge journey of launching a school. So that's a wrap on season 1. If you have any questions about Acton Academy Victoria, we would love to chat with you. You can reach us at actonacademyvictoria.ca. And again, we are so excited to be bringing this to Victoria in fall of 2026. And if you're listening to this after that, well, you'll just be able to come and visit us, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and stay tuned for season 2 of the Intentional Family podcast. We're planning to launch that in the fall, and we'll bring you along as we actually launch our school. What does it look like the first few weeks? So if you want to actually hear how the day-to-day is going, come back in the fall. And we also plan to have
Just
interviews.
some guests, some people in our life who are learning to live out of intentionality as well, other Acton owners, people who have been on this journey before us. And so we're really excited to be able to share their stories with you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad that you've been here, and we look forward to seeing you again.